This is Viva Fry.
I'm Dr. Peter McCullough.
This is Tom Luongo.
This is Chuck Prodnick.
This is Alex Krainer.
Hey, this is Brad Wall.
This is JP Sears.
Hi, this is Frank Peretti.
This is Tammy Peterson.
This is Danielle Smith.
This is James Lindsay.
Hey, this is Brett Kissel, and you're listening to the Shaun Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Thursday. How's everybody doing today? Did you know you can hold physical gold and silver in your registered accounts? Silver Gold Bull can help you unlock the potential of your RRSP, TFSA, RRIF, or your kids' RESP by adding physical gold and silver to your account. This year's deadline is March 2nd, and once your contribution is made, so if you made previous contributions, you can literally invest in physical precious metals at any time. And, speaking of silver specifically, because me and Ken on the year in review had talked whether or not it was going to hit $100 an ounce Canadian before the end of the year, which it did, and then it dropped down. And today, where I sit, talking to you, it's at 107.74 Canadian. So if you're paying attention to that, that's where that's at. And gold at 61.58. So, yes, precious metals. If you're interested in anything to do with that, Silver Gold Bull has all their in-house solutions, whether buying, selling, or storing precious metals. You can text or email Graham down the show notes with any questions you have around investing in precious metals or for features silver deals exclusively offered to the SMP listener. silvergoldbull.com.ca. Make sure to reference the Shaun Newman Podcast on any purchases you make. Guardian Plumbing and Heating. These guys have been keeping homes, farms, and businesses running smoothly since 2010. I tell you what, they were just in my house yesterday. I'm in the basement. I was looking at the ceiling, and I'm like, I don't think that's been there. And then Mel came down the stairs. She's like, oh, my God, what happened to the ceiling? I'm like, that's a leak from something. Give Guardian Plumbing and Heating a call. They come over, fix this all up. It wasn't as bad as initially expected, which on this side was a big relief. And that's one of the things, Scott, shout out to Scott. He came over and, just walked through everything, was fantastic. And, I know Guardian has lots of things that set them apart, but their crew they got are just very thorough and really appreciated the help, in a situation where you're going, oh, man, what is this going to be? And walked in, solved the problem, and, just nothing but time for the team over there. And whether it's expert service, cutting-edge power solutions, or advice you can trust, Guardian Plumbing and Heating has your back. I can speak to that as they just solved another problem for me. And Guardian Plumbing and Heating, protecting their customers from the unexpected through innovative solutions. You can visit them at guardianplumbing.ca. Ignite Distribution is a high-service supply company based in Wainwright, Alberta. I'm talking about Shane Stafford and his team. They specialize in automotive parts and a wide range of additional products, including safety equipment, welding supplies, fasteners, and janitorial items, operating as a Napa auto parts retailer. They got exceptional customer service. And actually, they have their filter sale coming up right away. I'm actually going for lunch with Shane. We're going to be talking about it. I know there was some people take advantage of the filter sale. I'm talking specifically to all you farmers. You should be listening up because you're going to get some crazy deals. And we'll have more details coming out that in the weeks to come. And if you're looking for somebody who can take care of you on the, making sure your operation has all it needs, and you're looking for a Napa Auto Parts, Ignite Distribution. Shane Stafford, give him a call, 780-842-3433. The Mashspiel, January 17th. Okay, we are less than 10 days away. There are 7 spots left as I checked this morning. So if you're sitting there on the fence, you're like, I don't even own any curling equipment. Don't worry about it. Rink's going to take care of it. You're not a great curler. I'm not a great curler. If you're a great curler, make sure you touch base with me first because I might need to add you to my team because I suck. And I do want to beat twos. I'm not worried about winning the entire thing, but if I play twos' team, which I'm sure is going to get set up, I want to beat them. I don't want to have to live that down for a year. There's a whole bunch of people coming. Lise Merle just said on the Festivus mashup, she's going to be there. Found out Sheila Gunn Reed's on her team. We got Shane Getson coming along with Marty up north. The military boys are all going to be there. Jamie, Chuck, Willie. So there's going to be a fun group in attendance. Eva Chipiak as well. So if you're looking for a fun Saturday, January 17th, the Mashspiel, we got 7 tickets left at Kalmar. So that's just west of Leduc. The Cornerstone Forum is March 28th at the Calgary Weston Airport Hotel, Western Calgary Airport. I'm mixing that up. The big news of the week that I've been talking about, Premier Danielle Smith is going to be speaking at it, along with the likes of Martin Armstrong, Tom Luongo, Alex Krainer, Vince Lanchi, Matt Ehret, Chad Prather, Karen Katowski, Sam Cooper, Tom Bodrovics. Twos is going to be back, so that's going to be a fun weekend in Calgary. If you haven't bought your tickets for that, we're over halfway sold now, so don't wait too long, folks, because once she's sold out, that's all she wrote. So make sure you grab yourself a ticket, and looking forward to seeing everybody there March 28th. If you're listening or watching on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, Substack, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave a review on Substack. Consider becoming a paid member and supporting what I do on this show. All right, let's get on to that. Tale of the tape. Our first guest is a former research chemist, amateur dairy goat farmer, libertarian, and economist whose work can be found on Zero Hedge and Newsmax Media. He hosts the Gold, Goats, and Guns podcast. The second, a Croatian national, former hedge fund manager, author, and contributing editor at Zero Hedge. I'm talking about Tom Luongo and Alex Krainer. So buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Shaun Newman podcast. Today I'm joined by Tom Luongo, Alex Krainer. Gentlemen, thanks for hopping on.
Good to join you, Shaun, again. Hi, Tom. Good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and I think it's Happy Orthodox Christmas as well, isn't it?
That was yesterday, but yeah.
What's close enough, yeah.
Well, we're under 3 months now, folks, from you two being in Canada, back in Calgary. The big news earlier this week, Premier Danielle Smith going to be speaking at the Cornerstone Forum as well, so that's exciting. Looking forward to seeing you guys. But until we get there, I feel like the world's just going to give us things to talk about every step of the way. Okay, Venezuela. I mean, Maduro gets extracted. Since then, I think there's been Russian submarines and Russian tankers, I don't know, getting scooped up by the U.S. I'm like, well, who better to talk to than Tom and Alex about this? Because maybe you can decipher all the things that are happening right now.
Fat chance.
Go ahead, Alex.
Fat chance.
Well, okay, so I can get started. And, there's a number of angles to the story. And every angle is plausible. Well, every angle. There's a few plausible angles. Drugs trafficking, but not drugs trafficking as in drugs trafficking, because there's not much drugs coming out of Venezuela going to the United States, but there's a whole money laundering network that goes along, and it's possible that Maduro was somehow involved, facilitated it. I don't know. The other one is, the Dominion system Smartmatic angle. Then there's the oil angle. Then there's the silver angle. And then there's always a freedom and democracy angle. And there's a lot to each one of those. I mean, apart from freedom and democracy, there's a lot to each one of those. And I can't figure it out. And I spent several hours since Monday listening to podcasts where, British state actors appear, people like Alistair Campbell, Rory Stewart, the Times Radio, where you'll have like these ex-MI6 people like Sir Richard Dearlove and so forth giving their statement. And they don't know either, because they know for sure that they hate Trump and they're very worried about him, but they don't know what the hell the deal is with Venezuela. So that's why I said fat chance that I know. Mm. So we can guess and speculate. And, there's a couple of very interesting rabbit holes to the story, but there's no way to know for sure.
I'll pick up on that, Alex. I think you're right. That again, I think the better way to, well, I don't say better way. I don't want to say Alex is an idiot, of course. What I'm saying is, I think there's another way to frame this, which is to say, everybody's theory about Venezuela, be it the oil or the silver or the gold or the oil or whatever, I think they're all valid. They're all partially true, and they're all partially explanatory, and therefore they're all partially valid. In effect, the way I was looking at it the other day, as I said, Venezuela is kind of both the Rosetta Stone for understanding like American geopolitics in the Western Hemisphere for the last 50 or 60 years, as well as the linchpin to understanding to how to destroy the all roads lead to London through the Western Hemisphere. So it's kind of both of those things. It unlocks understanding the Rosetta Stone and is the linchpin holding the whole old network of things together. I think if you do that, then you look at, and then you break, and then you can say, okay, well, this one's clearly a linchpin. This one's clearly part of the Rosetta Stone. And here's the one here's the angle no one's talking about. Who showed up yesterday to on Twitter to give his endorsement of Maria Machado? None other than please clap himself, Jeb Bush. Now, I want everybody to understand here that the Bush clan is absolutely the linchpin to American subservience to British and quote unquote Davosian globalist politics, because it was the Bush clan that helped Britain get the United States involved in World War II. And then if we take the work of our friends over Promethean Action at face value, the ones that ensured that when World War II was over, the British got everything they wanted and the Americans became our dumb army, right? And the post-Bretton Woods era of the WTO, the IMF, the World Bank, all this stuff, all those things were done in order to extract the wealth of the U.S. middle class built over the first 170 years of the country's existence and suck it all back into Europe via the Marshall Plan, via the UN, via the NGOs, via all of that stuff. And who was at the center of all of that in the drug trade? None other than, Poppy Bush himself. So, people have been bringing up Noriega, for example. People in our sphere, or at least in the nominal anti-war sphere, the anti-imperial sphere, bringing up Noriega. How is this any different than Noriega? Actually, Crypto Rich asked me that exact question the other day when I was on his show. And I said, well, the difference is that there, Poppy Bush was protecting the CIA's drug trade by getting rid of Noriega. And this time, Donald Trump is destroying it. So, and it's not just the drug trade. It's more. It's about, now we're actually, seeing rogue elements of the CIA work with sovereigntist forces, because they're the rogue elements in the CIA. The actual patriot wing of the CIA is the rogue elements of the CIA, where the rest of the CIA is criminal, right? They're the ones that, so when I use rogue elements of CIA, I mean the good guys from our perspective, right? So the rogue elements of the CIA working with, the people on the ground in Venezuela to kill all the Cuban guards that Maduro had around him and all this stuff. All of that was set up beautifully. I spoke to Blaine Holt yesterday for the Gold, Goods, and Guns podcast. When we get done with the show, I'm going to release that this afternoon. He's got a lot of very interesting observations, being a guy who used to hang out with the guys who executed the raid on Maduro's compound, right? So that's where Blaine's, former experience is in. He knows those guys.
Hey, wasn't it Blaine who said that if the Trump people want to take out Maduro, the odds of that happening is 100%? Was it him that said that? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Because I spoke with him. I spoke with him, but I forgot whether it was him who said that or it was Ian Burlingame.
It might have been both of them together. I remember, I don't know about you guys, but when they get together, that's must listen TV for me. And so they were on Crypto Rich's podcast, and they did a beautiful 20-minute segment on, on what they think is going on with the seizure of the oil tanker, and then everything has kind of spun out since then. And they were just riffing back and forth. So it could have been both of them. If someone would have said it first, the other one would have agreed, and then it would have just been a melange of, "Yep, you're right." One professional to another, "You're right." So when we put all that together, folks, I think this is a big deal, and like everything else, what's my normal heuristic in politics? You know a man's loyalties in politics by who hates him. So if all the usual suspects hate him, he's probably a good guy, right? Well, same thing here in Venezuela. If all the usual suspects hate a particular outcome, it's probably a good thing. So
I'm glad you brought up the Bushes, because it's true that the Bushes were up to their eyeballs in the drugs trade and the money laundering. Poppy Bush, but apples don't fall far from their trees, right? And so that, if that's who's being targeted, that's who's being targeted. And then another person who hasn't endorsed Maria Corina Machado, but has, was very vexed that Trump took a swipe at her, was John Bolton. Because John Bolton was John Bolton is doing a lot of rounds on British TV shows and podcasts, because he is their go-to guy on all things United States. And so he's vexed that there was no regime change. So he's saying, this is nothing. This is a hollow victory if you took out Maduro and left the regime intact. And then he said that it was inexplicable that Trump took a swipe at Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel Prize winner, blah blah blah. So they're clearly very, very unhappy. But where this story gets some color is back in March of last year, 25. There was a long interview by one David Asher, to an online publication called The Bureau. It's a long interview in which, because remember Susan Kokinda was pointed out that while we were all looking at Venezuela, Trump put Canada on notice. And then there was, not much to it, because, Trump did say we're losing a lot of people to overdoses, blah, blah, blah. Some of it's coming, a lot of it is coming from Canada. Did you know that? That's about all he said. And then Susan's Promethean Action Update 2 days ago had a whole 16-minute report about that, which is excellent, but it doesn't elaborate much on the Canada angle. But this David Asher, who was a high-level official in the U.S. State Department and is one of the key people in U.S. drugs, I don't know what you call that, drug enforcement. It's not the drug, it's not the DEA, but something.
Interdiction or investigation.
Okay, I'll have to. Former U.S. State Department official with close ties to the Trump administration's financial and national security apparatus. Okay, so that's how he's described in this article. And he gives a long interview, and the interview is basically about the drug running through Canada. Because at the time they just busted a major super lab in British Columbia, and there was in 2022 there was a major Canadian investigative report that was published, a big thing. You can find it online. It's called, what is it called? Give me a second, because. I want to get the name right, because some people listening might want to look it up and read through it.
Sure.
Yeah. I just wrote a report on this. So, Commission on commission of inquiry into money laundering in British Columbia. It's known as a Cullen Commission report.
Okay.
And so they know there's a problem. They know that a number of Canadian banks are up to their eyeballs in money laundering of the drugs trafficking to the United States. This David Asher guy, he said that there's like 80% of the phone numbers that when they make calls from the United States, the 80% of them call to Canada. But there are certain provisions in Canadian law that make it impossible for the United States to investigate those leads, because as soon as they're onto somebody, they find out that they're onto them, and they change their numbers, they change their addresses. So they have been unable to wreck that network. And they know that there's a whole shitload of these super labs in Canada, that a lot of fentanyl, methamphetamine, plain old pot, and all kinds of stuff is coming, and weapons is coming into the United States from Canada, and that Canadian banks are doing most of the money laundering, but they can't pursue it. And in spite of this Cullen report coming out in 2022, the Canadian government has done fuck all about it. Nothing. And so the David Asher in this interview is complaining about this bitterly. And he's saying, if we're going the legal means, we get nowhere. And, there's every reason to believe that this is by design, that this is not, like the Canadian government is pretending, oh, there's nothing we can do about this, because if you pursue somebody at law, well, we have to let them know we have to let them know that you're targeting them. And that's where the traces get lost. Get lost. And so the way that the United States has been trying to turn the tables is by saying that everybody who's running drugs into the United States and everybody who's laundering money for them is it's part of a terrorist network.
Yes.
And once they declare them a terrorist organization, then they can use a completely different legal framework, and they can pursue them through these other means, which I don't know how to name them, but there's like a whole
right.
There's like a like if you go by legal ways, if you're going to be within the bounds of international law and by the book, you get nowhere. And so United States has been at the receiving end of a proper 21st century opium war. Yep. And you can see that it's obvious. The United States is flooded with all these kinds of drugs. There's like 100,000 overdose deaths, million of addicts. Every U.S. city looks like a freaking dump. That's kind of reminiscent of the way the British took down China, which was 200 years ago. First opium war was 1832. They took down the nation that was the global economic superpower, number one economic superpower in the world, and a 6,000-year civilization. They took it down in a few years and then subjected it to a century of humiliation, including 2 opium wars that were inflicted on China. And so these are, again, like you had them growing opium in India, shipping it into China, and laundering the money through banks like HSBC, right? Today, you have them growing the drugs in Mexico and Colombia, shipping in precursors from China, and they have these labs wherever in Canada and Mexico and so forth. And so it pretty much looks like the same thing, maybe more elaborate, maybe more sophisticated and better hidden with, all these offshore banking centers. But apparently, Toronto is the, if not the center of it, it's one of the centers of it. I can't tell how the hell Nicolas Maduro figures into this whole thing, but I think it's easy to imagine that for a nation under extremely strict sanctions, they are relatively easy to penetrate because, nothing works, everything's shit, nobody has any money. So it's, like in Syria, they subjected Syria to Caesar sanctions, and then it was very easy for them to co-opt Syrian officials to work with them. And so for some reason, I guess, for that reason, I guess they were able to co-opt Venezuela into this, plus Smartmatic and Dominion system and all this. And I guess they figured that Maduro is the kingpin in Venezuela for this network, and that bringing him to the United States is part of this war, which is obviously now taking shape outside of the bounds of the, rules-based system and international law and blah, blah, blah. But it's a dirty war countering a dirty war, because opium wars are like the dirtiest kind.
Yep.
And so I think that's a plausible angle, but, we're going on relatively few dots to connect, because nobody's saying anything. And the reason why they wouldn't be saying anything is because if you're going to go against these networks, then what you have to do is you have to do the opposite of putting them on notice.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to pretend that it's about oil. You have to pretend that it's about, we're going to be killing the Russians. Actually, Russians have. Oh yeah, okay. There's a whole thing.
Okay,
two more minutes.
Okay.
There's the Russians. If you guys saw Susan Kokinda's update, she cited Viktor Ivanov in Russia in 2014, mentioning this in his speech to like some kind of a drug fighting conference in Moscow, where he was saying that the chief element in this whole opium war is exactly the British offshore system in the Caribbean, right? And going back to my 2017 book called The Grand Deception,
right?
I was saying that it will take an alliance of the United States and Russia to root this out, because the Russians alone can't do it. The United States alone can't do it. Cannot do it either. But working together, they could do it. And so it's possible that seizing Russian tankers, making it look like Trump tried to assassinate Putin, could be part of this, because you don't want to show that you're working together against these other people.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's yes, I agree with all that. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really think that anybody is anybody who's got eyes to see, like that, the way we've been watching this for years, we realize that Trump and Putin are clearly coordinating action in order to do that. We've been, Alex, I mean, we've done 24 podcasts together where we've discussed the bits and pieces of this. I don't think these dots are as thin as you're presenting them. I think you're being, I think you're being properly circumspect, but I think you've done a fine job of like, this is the way it's happening, and it's working in front of us because the incentives all line up. And in geopolitics, once you understand and you've figured out the incentives, and you've got a thing that is a construct that is not just self-consistent, but also is steel-manable by other, when you look at it from different perspectives, that's when you know you've got an entire idea, an entire grasp of the situation. So, yeah, let's talk about those Canadian banks. Let's talk about the fact that the Canadians refused to help. Obviously, they refused to help. This is a crown organization. Canada has always been, and this has been the biggest fake out in, modern history, that Canada is somehow tied to the United States in anything other than an adversarial relationship. Canada was born Matt Arid has gone on 1,000 hours about how Canada was born as an antipode, as an ab reaction against the American Revolution. Same thing, and the British spent 130 years fighting us, and then somewhere around the turn of the 20th century started to change their tactics to become our best friends. And by the end of World War II and the death of FDR, and all of a sudden we look like Britain, but quote unquote cruder and with an uglier accent. It's pathetic. Clearly these people are evil. Clearly they're the problem here. And when you take that as your baseline assumption, your boundary condition to your problem, and then start solving all of these differential equations, all of these various angles, in mathematic terms are all differential equations, to solve always winds up being the same thing. X, Y, and Z equals London. Like, it's not tough, right? And that's not to say that they haven't co-opted the Chinese on other vectors and other people haven't, or the Israelis or the this ones or the that ones. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're the ones pushing the ball forward. They're the ones who control the foundation. So in terms of Maduro, how does he fit in? It's really simple. He's the figurehead we're supposed to hate. He's also the guy who knows everything, because he's the guy kind of running it all, right? He's the guy, and I've been thinking about Maduro. I've also been thinking about Ayatollah Khamenei the same way. It says he's a captured pawn, no different than, like there's this whole layer of evil people that run around doing evil shit around the world. In this case, the IRGC and the entire axis of resistance, in my mind now, is nothing but a big British and or French construct to make Iran into the bad guy, blame the mullahs for this, give them a horrible name, right? They always fucking do, these people. And then, and allow them to run around the world creating chaos and then misdirecting people by controlling the media narrative and flooding the space with half truths and lies and everything else. And they inculcated 3 generations of Americans into believing this nonsense, right? And we had the Bush clan when they were in power, and the Rockefellers when they had their people in power, and all of that. So coming from the murder of JFK forward, American media history and Americans' understanding of their own history is completely clouded by all this. And it takes almost a lifetime of deprogramming to get to the point where, for example, I am today, right? And so imagine now you're the average American who's told that Russia bad, this one bad, that one bad, Iran bad, this one, all of this stuff. And they're now having to reframe all of this because Trump sets off a war between Israel and Iran that's over in 12 days. Neither regime fell, but neither regime really wants to go to war with each other either. And I know there's a lot of smoke out there that something is going to happen in another couple of weeks or whatever. Everybody's making noise again because, of course, the British and the French do not want that conflict to go away because that's how they stay relevant in the game. So there's going to be aftershocks to the 12-day war. Same thing with Venezuela. If Trump wants to control the situation in Venezuela, he's not to put troops on the ground and everything else. No, Delcy Rodriguez is in charge of everything. There was a big long post I retweeted on Twitter last night about how Rodriguez has got buy-in from everybody who was left of Maduro's regime. Maduro was exfiltrated, or as Ian Burlingham would like to put it, brought into protective custody. Who's now going to sing like
Is that what he said? Is that what he said?
Yeah, he and I both.
I'm really glad because that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I thought. This is too weird. This just doesn't happen. He must have agreed to go himself.
Of course he agreed.
He's the one who made the deal, not Darcy Rodriguez. Nobody betrayed him.
Well, okay. I will say about this is the following. I think that Maduro was holding out for a better deal. I think, and at some point, the negotiations got to a particular level, and that was unacceptable. And I think there was something else that actually sped all of this up. I'm not sure if it was the Chinese moving in, a delegation in there, and this was a flex against the Chinese. I don't know. I mean, there's so many little bits and pieces to this, that I've heard, Did the Chinese get paid? Did the Chinese, exfiltrate 847 tons of gold? I mean, not gold, silver out of the country. Was that their payoff for allowing their boy Maduro to be taken into American custody? Like, there's all of this. What was the actual deal? But the reality on the ground is the operation itself, flawless. And the way Blaine talked to me about it on Monday afternoon when we spoke, and I apologize for not having that podcast out into the world yet, and I'll get it out, I promise, this afternoon, is that he doesn't think anybody in like London and Brussels and anywhere else thought that Trump would actually do what he did. That the risks to going in and trying to get Maduro were so high that he'll never roll those dice.
Yeah,
That it's 1,000 to 1 odds against he'll never do it. And and maybe their thinking on that was wrong because their understanding of American military logistics is fundamentally flawed. I want to remind everybody, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently is that, it's that whole Dr. Livingston thing. Reports of our ineffectuality are greatly exaggerated. The reports of America's demise are greatly exaggerated. We've been inculcated, or we've been conditioned to believe that America can't act. Why? Because we had a whole bunch of people running the country who refused to act. No different than Canada refusing to act to stop the fentanyl trade and the money laundering coming out of Canadian banks. Why? They were complicit in the whole fucking thing. Today, the United States is proving that when the United States decides to act in its best interest, there's fuck all most people can do to stop it. Now, there's a limit to some of that. Obviously, we can talk about China, and we can talk but like those risks are not worth taking. Better to negotiate a way out of those conflicts, but not to do so in such a way that is absolutely, the U.S. is powerless to stop all this. Really? Has anybody looked at the tick data? Like, you don't think that like our that our debt isn't well respected around the world? Have you looked at bond yields? Bond yields aren't telling you that no one wants the dollar. Like, that's nonsense. Like, so there's a lot going on here, and I hate to, I know there's a lot of people in the audience who are like, oh my God, Luongo's going off again. It's being this, jingoistic American fucktard. Like, no, dudes, I'm telling you, I was never one of those people. I was on the other side of that argument for decades. And now I'm watching it in real time going, holy shit. Like, Delta Force is good. I read a tweet the other day is basically said, if the SEALs had pulled off this operation, they would have failed to get Maduro, lost 30 guys, made 5 or 6 Mark Wahlberg movies about it, and done about 1,000 hours worth of podcasts. Delta Force just went in and took care of it in 3 minutes and 46 seconds. Or however long the friggin' operation took. In, out, 2 pump chump, done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's impressive. And those messages were sent. It's like, why did Trump bomb Fort out the way he did last June? It wasn't because we didn't have assets in the field at U.S. CENTCOM in Bahrain to do this. It's because we wanted to flex and show everybody that we could do it from fucking Missouri and no one would know. That message was not for you, me, and Shaun and the peanut gallery on Twitter. That message was to the Russians, the Chinese, and everybody else. No different than what we saw the other night. Certain messages are being sent. I need to frame it that way. So yes, Maduro was exfiltrated in order to be brought into protective custody so that he can then name names, because as you pointed out, Alex, brilliantly, I might add, you can't get there by legal means. We've got a warrant for the guy's arrest. U.S. warrants, the U.S. military can under U.S. law, can issue that, can, serve that warrant. And we did so. Is it, cheeky to put it in those terms? Sure. What are you going to do about it? Venezuela can declare war right now against the United States if they wanted to. And everybody in the anti-U.S. imperial press, a lot of our friends, some of our, fellow travelers, are looking a little dumb this morning because there ain't no way Venezuela is going to declare war in the United States and then take their grievance to the friggin', to The Hague? Even the Russians just wrote a sternly worded letter from Putin's mom. I mean, it wasn't even, you know what I mean? It was just, the whole thing was so obvious that this needed to happen so that we can start unwinding this whole thing, the whole underlayer, and stop with the states are only allowed to act against other state actors, and the non-state actors get to run around the world and kill and enslave billions of people. How about fuck all with that? How about we use the power, in this case, if we have to, we use the power of state action to fix that problem, and then back off, because that's what has to happen at this point, because only a state actor as powerful as the United States can pull off an operation like that one. Just like there's going to be a Chinese operation somewhere else. There's Russian operations happening in Ukraine as we speak, right? That's the way I'm looking at it. And if that gets on everybody's, if that compromises everybody's, I don't know, beefies, well, that's not the world we live in, because, state actors, these are not wars being fought by state actors crossing arbitrary political borders. This is a war, as Alex pointed out, that is carried out by non-state actors, ignoring geography other than the raw geography, not the political geography, but the actual geography, doing what they need to do to advance their agenda. And now we have people in the world who are saying, you know what, nuts to that. That's why I never faulted Putin for moving into Ukraine, even though, it's against the whole, might makes right. We were supposed to be past the whole might makes right thing, or we can redraw political borders with military force. Well, I got news for you. NATO did that in Yugoslavia. Did they not? 1990s.
Yeah, but wait. Kaja Kallas said that if the government has legit, why are you laughing? She's brave.
I know you're going. I know you're going to say something terribly dry and witty.
She's stunning and brave. She's stunning and brave, Tom. Come on. She said that if your government has legitimacy, then you can't take them out. But if it doesn't have legitimacy, then it's okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. So there you go.
Okay.
So
okay. Well, now that we've established the brilliance of Kaja Kallas, Okay, excellent. So that's my take.
It's the rules-based order, Tom. Is the rules-based order? Read up.
Which is anarcho-tyranny.
Catch on.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Hey, unless I make up different rules tomorrow. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm glad you mentioned people like Iran and Hezbollah and all of these other people, because everybody's going on like, oh, Hezbollah has cells in Latin America, and the Iranians do, and blah blah blah. I don't know what this is based on, but there's a lot of Middle Eastern businessmen in South America, a lot, like whole communities. One of them was our late friend Edmond Safra. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Lebanese banker of Syrian origin who set up banks in Brazil to launder Israeli money, right? Mm-hmm. And then he funded our other friend who's still around, Bill Browder, right?
Bill Browder, right.
Who was there pillaging and plundering Russia in the 1990s. It's all the same networks.
Yes.
And Edmond Safra has nothing to do with Hezbollah. But, his kind of, he started his career in Lebanon. So, yeah, we can smear him with it.
But he does have
because we already want to take out Hezbollah and the Iranians. So, when some Lebanese gets into some shady business, then we can say like, oh, yeah, he's Hezbollah. Look how bad they are. But the
whole Edmond Safra angle, which is, I'm glad you really brought this up, Alex, because it comes back to the reason why you and I became friends when I invited you on. That episode of the podcast has been scrubbed from the internet. I think I have to go find it and re-upload it.
No way.
Yeah, Spreaker scrubbed it years ago, actually. For everybody in the audience, this is taking Alex and I back to the day when I first asked him to come on my podcast to be my very first guest. Because we were in the orbit of Lee Stranahan, and he was like, "So you need to talk to Alex Krainer," because we were both doing fault lines at the time with him and Garland, and so that got taken care of that way, and that's how
They'd never.
So we're all downstream of that, but this goes all the way back to.
They'd
What's
never
that?
do that. They'd never scrub an entire episode from the internet. They would.
Unless it was misinformation and disinformation
Oh no, yeah.
to protect the
So
public, you know.
Protect the
yeah, you
public
have
for
to.
sure. Got to protect them. Got to protect
Absolutely.
them.
No good. Well, but you know, thinking about all that, you know, Edmund Safford down there. So again, like, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with, you know, the conspiracy to put Martin Armstrong in jail, and Putin's rise to power, and Bill Browder, and you know, Yukos, and this and that, and all of that stuff. Where does that all lead back to?
City of Manchester? No, wait.
Yeah. Oh God, no. It's
Newcastle? No.
no. Edinburgh? No. Fuck. Oh shit. Yeah. Wales. It's absolutely going back to Wales. That's where it's going. All roads lead to Wales.
Yeah. It's always the same thing, and it's been going on since when did they create this network of offshore centers? Like 1960s?
It was, yeah, so it's concurrent with the rise of the Eurodollar system, and you know, which I think Jeff Snyder, when he was actually relevant back 10, 11 years ago, talking about all the Eurodollar stuff when he was still working for Alhambra Partners, you know, he said that by about 1954, the United States had lost control of its monetary policy. The Eurodollar system had already eclipsed the domestic dollar markets, and therefore they were in charge of. That's well before like the London Gold Pool, LIBOR, any of that stuff. It was already at that point. You could trace the Eurodollar system, the size of it having dwarfed the American system. Now, I'd have to go back and read those posts from 12 years ago to see how Jeff was constructing those Eurodollar futures curves, because there was no Eurodollar futures market at that point. But you understand what I'm getting at. So,
Yeah.
Gentlemen, if okay. Maduro, you bring him into protective custody so he can sing and tell all the dirty deeds and everything else. What do you expect to come out of that?
At a minimum, the laundry list of people in the Senate and Congress who have been paid to look the other way.
I have that list already. Somebody published it. I don't know if it's...
Yeah, I don't know that list is real or not real. I've seen the same list. I'm going to say, as of right now, there's the list that we've seen, and then there's the real list, right? And I don't believe that the real list is not a superset of the list that we've seen. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's So out of this is gonna come for the United States all the people that have been taking money from foreign interests to go against the interests of America. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that ends that threat of that at this point ends this whole fucking extended pretend bullshit that they're not going to pass any of Trump's agenda legislatively. They're not going to push any of his appointments through the Senate, yada yada yada. All that has to end. Like right here, right now. Like that's what all the smurfing. That's what all the smurfing notices are all about. That's what Minnesota. Somebody pointed out about Minnesota and the fraud is that, you know, when you go on it's just like when you want to roll up a drug kingpin, you go after the guy who's got the least amount of assets in the world, because he's the easy target to put legal pressure on, because he can't defend himself in court because he doesn't have any freaking money. Well, Minnesota is the weakest of these states that are actually the center of the fraud. That's the easiest state to go after, because one, is so blatant, and two, it's the one so the most dependent on the fraud continuing, and that's why we've already seen Tim Walz say he's not going to run for re-election and everything else, and they can push it. Now you've established the pattern. Now you start rolling up to the next bigger states. Now you start looking at Ohio and New York and Maine and Washington, but the real targets are New York and California.
I had something on my mind to say, and now it's gone. I bet it was great. It was brilliant, but it's lost now.
Oh God, it happens to me all the time, Alex. Oh my God, getting old sucks, doesn't it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh God, it'll come back to you. But not just that part of it, right? there's so many other angles on this. Like, what else could come from of Maduro? I mean, maybe this will spark spark that to come back to you. We also have the precious metals trade, right, which is also aimed directly at the city of London. So I think I got you.
Okay, so here's what because Shaun asked what comes out of this. Well, remember the national security strategy document that just came out in December? So one of the things it said was that the United States is going to be dismantling the infrastructure of hostile powers in its hemisphere.
Yes.
And so, everybody assumes that this is like, right, so China, Iran, Russia, blah, blah, blah. What if it's this infrastructure that we're talking about, the offshore banking centers, the money laundering centers, the drugs people and weapons smuggling networks and all this? That's infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that Susan Kokinda said, well, she pointed it out because it's not controversial that in at least a few cabinet meetings of Trump administration, Trump was referring to, countries like Iran, Russia, China as our supposed enemies and our so-called enemies. Because I think that he regards certain other powers as the enemies of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Why do you think Trump's immediately moving to Green Line? He's immediately pivoting to Green Line. Venezuela's done. I'm sure we have our guys on the ground and helping things out, but there was a small aftershock of Maduro, quote unquote, loyalists that tried to, take back the capital in Caracas and whatnot, and that just ended. And it was very quickly, it's over. And Alex, did you see the reports of the C-17s landing in the UK?
I did see them. I don't know what that's about. What is that about? Is it like pressure Denmark or?
I think it's two things. I think some of those guys are on their way to the Middle East. And two, I think some of those guys were made a trip to the Bank of England.
Oh, you think?
Oh, yeah. Venezuela's gold is in the Bank of England.
Okay, I was wondering about that, Tom, because so here's back to Venezuela for a moment. So they take out Maduro, but they leave Delcy Rodriguez in charge. Mm-hmm. They don't change anything about the government. The military is in charge. None of the institutions of the Venezuelan state have been altered, dismantled, nothing. Everything left intact, right? John Bolton says, terrible. Follow victory. So if you're Delcy Rodriguez, it makes sense to go to elections as soon as possible and cement her victory because, right now she would probably get an overwhelming vote. Mm-hmm. Now you have a president in Venezuela, let's say she wins. Now you have a president in Venezuela who is legitimate, right? And then they can say, give us back our gold. Or we want our gold transferred to New York, we don't want our gold sitting in. And what's the UK? What's the Bank of England going to say? No, you're still not legitimate. We still don't regard you as legitimate. What are they going to say? That's 100. Right. That's like what 140 tons that they took, right? Yeah. 140 tons. That's just shy of $20 billion, right?
That's right.
What are the Brits going to say?
Right. I know. It's a good angle. That's a very very good point, Alex. I really I like that angle. So yes, and then you go through create the legal quote unquote fiction or whatever you want to live by the rules based order, dies by the rules based order. He's only illegitimate. She's only legitimate as the president if we are okay with the results. Yeah. What are they going to do? Yeah. I mean, the United States is going to be on the ground to monitor the elections and all of the, and also we're not going to trust the United States word on this anymore, but we only trust your word on it. No, you don't get to be in country anymore. And so at that point, then that's when we drop the snake eaters, as Blaine would put it, on the ground into the UK and go, look, this is over. Because at this point, and then note that yesterday, Stomani and Surly went to Ukraine and signed that stupid friggin' document, the Three Stooges, about, how they're going to put troops in Ukraine. Like, I know that they want the United States to leave NATO. They're threatening us with, liquidating their treasury reserves and all. They have thrown everything at us. And now they're virtue signaling their old tits off. If you invade Greenland, NATO will be over. Like, we have a hostile power in NATO called Turkey, with the largest army outside of the United States, that has openly taken territory from another NATO member, Greece, in living memory, and everybody just stood around and let it happen. Well, this asshole runs around claiming half the Mediterranean is his sovereign waters, which makes a mockery of UNCLOS, the universal law of the sea, right? Like insane stuff, and we allow all this to happen, but NATO will dissolve over Greenland. Really? A place that we could take over with a platoon of like deer hunters and a pack of Great Pyrenees. For fuck's sake. We don't even need a tank. Like, we just airdrop these guys in with the dogs. Like,
I feel like you could do that on Canada, Tom. With a few minutes left, because I know Alex has a hard on. One of the things I was going to say is, up until this past week, how many people did you hear talking about the Monroe Doctrine? I would argue nobody other than the people that I talk to that know about it, right? I would say. Now everybody's talking about it. And then Greenland comes up. Yep. And I'm like, am I the only Canadian sitting here going, well, what point do they say Monroe Doctrine in Canada, right? And go, we got to fix what's going on to the north.
Shaun, I'm going to say next week. Alex, that's your answer. Next week.
And then they land the pack of hunters and guys on a dog sled, and they just come up, and everyone's like, yeah, sure,
and
whatever. We got no army anyway.
For the dog sled, yeah. We're done.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that the United States is very good at, because they honed their skills for a few decades now, is orchestrating color revolutions and overthrowing regimes. And Trump did dismantle USAID, but he never dismantled the National Endowment for Democracy. And I assume that they still have their, colossal network of NGOs and whatnot, public-private partnerships everywhere, and that they're capable of doing it. They don't have to go to war. They can unleash the color revolutions. And I wonder, what we've seen last month in Europe, protests in Bulgaria and Germany, France, Belgium, Denmark, all over the place. If this wasn't a taste of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just a quick question. What do you think the Delta Force people or whoever would do at the Bank of England if they went there?
They would go to get Venezuela's gold and possibly, okay. And I would also argue, I think, was it 25% of Italy's gold? Is that the ECB?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's 25% of it is held in the Mariner Eccles building, otherwise known as the Federal Reserve, in New York. In New York. And 50% of it is held in Rome, and then 25% of it, I think, is held at the ECB. But it may be held in Bank of England, for all I know at this point. Yeah. No,
they're going to be coughing up, aren't they?
I think City of London is in serious trouble. Like the silver, it's interesting. So, and one of the things I want to talk to you about, Alex. I'll try and do this in 2 minutes. Remember when the silver market broke in April of 2011? Silver was spiking towards $50 an ounce. That Sunday night. Okay, on that Friday, at close of business, the COMEX announced a big margin requirement. Actually, they did 3 margin raises that week in order to flush the over-levered longs out. But what was also announced at the same time when the silver market opened and started to fall? It was peaking literally into $49 during Shanghai. And then what was announced? SEAL Team 6 had captured and killed Osama bin Laden that night.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then we open up New York the next day down $3 or $4. and then silver market doesn't recover for 15 years. So I've been thinking about that as we come into this peak in the silver market over the last couple of weeks. Come up to $80. Things are crazy. We've got Asian AI guy now running around. We got all this crap happening. Everybody's talking about silver. We have a concentration of bullish activity all throughout the zeitgeist. And on Sunday night, after Maduro had been captured, Saturday morning, did silver open down? Did gold open down? They were both up. Silver was up $4 or $5 from a Friday close of 71, hit 76. Yesterday it hit 80, 81. It's now trading back down to about 79 today. Gold hit a new high in the 45, 50 area. Same thing. The world is different. Back then, the United States, the UK were in cahoots to break the market. Our banks now, other than maybe like the I would call the Devonian banks, which I think are, in this case, BOFA and Citigroup. So Bank of America, Citigroup. I think they're still net short silver, or at least they were. But the other ones are out of it. They're out of that trade. JP Morgan is the one playing the game in order to boost silver higher. My friend, our mutual friend Vince Lanchi, has got massive receipts on all of this. So if you haven't been following the story very closely in that respect, I have. The world has changed. I think the city of London is being removed from the pricing of gold, silver, copper, all the major metals. And the big one is oil. I know you got to run.
I got to run. Sorry.
Alex, Tom,
Guys,
appreciate you doing this.
Great to catch up. Enjoyed the chat. Until the next time.
Yes.
Absolutely.